Okay, so we're gonna start the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District regular meeting of Wednesday, January 8th. I guess the first thing we'll do is stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I gotta kill my ear. Or you folks won't like me.
You think
All right.
that will make a difference?
Yeah, probably not, but what, we can give it a shot. Okay, public expression of non-agendized items. The board welcomes participation in board meetings. Comments shall be limited to comments shall be limited so that everyone may be heard. This item is limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the board which are not on the posted agenda and items which have not already been considered by the board. The board limits testimony on matters not on the agenda to 3 minutes per person and not more than 10 minutes for a particular subject at the discretion of the chair of the board. No action will be taken. Individuals wishing to address the board on items on the agenda will be given an opportunity to do so when the item is addressed by the board. The board limits that testimony to 3 minutes also and 10 minutes to the particular subject. Anyone wishing to speak must come to the podium and may state their name. So, Lois, do you have anything?
Yeah.
Good.
Do I have to come up there? You need me up there?
Oh, why not? Let's be official.
Okay. So are you the new head chief of the?
Yeah, I'm the head honcho.
Okay, my name is Lois Erickson, and I'm a ratepayer in the district. And I'm always concerned about how much money we're paying the attorney. A couple of months ago, we paid him $64,000, I think. And I don't know about last month, but it looks like this month we paid him another about $11,000. And that's about half of the expenses, it looks like, for December. And I just don't see where we're continuing to pay him out of our pockets, so,
Can I comment?
I don't know.
Did you, if you read the rest of the agenda, you'll find a rate study in here that's relatively lengthy, and they have been working with the rate study individuals. They have been working with the bond refinance and several other things that are going on. So that's where that expense is coming from.
You know, all I know, Ernie, is it's coming out of our pockets. That's
Well,
my concern.
We have to have a rate study. We're gonna save $5 to $6 million in the refinance. So I think that it's money well spent to reduce our costs.
But the taxpayers are still paying that. So it's not gonna really, it's not
But
gonna.
point of order, Mr. Chair, and the public expression is not an open dialogue between the board and
Okay.
the public. It's
Good.
just
Okay,
an opportunity for the public to
I
speak.
just wanted to say I'm still looking.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we've got that out of the way. The next item would be the approval of the regular meeting of December 12th, 2019, board meeting.
December 11th.
December 11th, excuse me.
11th.
Yeah.
I
Want
move
to do
to,
both of them?
Yep,
Okay,
I move
good.
to approve the minutes for both meetings, December 11th and 12th.
I second it.
Okay, I think we can probably vote on that, but we ought to take a roll call, which I skipped.
Oh. That's
Okay, so let's vote on that, and then we'll take our roll call.
Okay.
Let's-
That's all right.
Chair Whiff
Aye.
and Vice Chair Marshall is absent for power arrangement. Director Horsley,
Abstain.
Oh, this is actually just
Roll
roll
call.
call for
Oh,
president.
we're
Where's
doing
roll call?
roll call.
Here.
Sorry,
We're doing roll
he
call.
skipped
I'm a
it.
little out of order, but
He's
Sorry,
I'll get
okay.
it, I'll get it down better here.
Here.
And
Director
well, I
Bobby?
missed that, and so did.
Here.
Director McNair.
And I'd like to thank Candace for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so I seconded the
got a
motion
first
to
and a second
approve
to approve the minutes.
for the 2 meetings of December 11th and 12th.
Okay, you want to do a roll call vote?
I think we just,
Open up to the public for any comment? Open it up to the public for any comment, please.
yes, open to the public for any comment. No comment. So there's been a motion and a second. I think we vote yea or nay, and I don't think we need to do a roll call
All
vote.
in favor, please say
All in favor, please
Aye.
say aye.
Aye.
And you
Abstain.
abstain.
All opposed?
Aye, so we're all,
Any opposed?
any opposed? Well, there's only 3
No.
of us.
Yeah, so.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, the formalities.
Okay. Okay, so the next item would be the consent calendar, which would be the check registers for December of 2019 and the county expenses for December of 2019. Are there any questions?
I just wanted to make a comment, if I can.
I do have a question too.
Oh, you want to go first? Go ahead.
No, I have a question instead of.
Okay, so my comment about the legal expenses, we talked about changing legal counsel back to county counsel, and so with all these other things going on, we talked about once the lawsuit was settled, that we would be in a better position to go back to county counsel who, and we're still, I still would like to consider that at a certain point in time when we get this bond refinance under our belt. So I just want to make that comment, and I have to keep that in mind all the time. So looking for the right moment to transition,
Okay,
okay?
Is it called county monthly expenses because the county writes the check?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I move to accept the consent calendar.
Second.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None?
Motion passes.
Okay, so we're good.
Did you remember to say aye?
Well, I would, if I was opposed, I would have said something.
Okay.
Okay, discussion and possible action for amending policy number 510. And Julie, I'd like to hang on to that one if possible until the next meeting.
Why is that? Can't we make changes that you have?
Because Ken's not here and didn't we table this last time because?
We did.
Yes, and I don't think it should be tabled again, because we tabled
We
it.
voted to table that, so you can't rescind the vote.
Right.
No, that was to this
It was
meeting.
voted on table, so now it has to be brought back to.
Yeah.
Brought back another matter to untable.
There's no
And
reason
there
to
was- I mean,
table,
go ahead.
there's no reason to table it again unless there's a problem. If you've read
Don't
it,
we vote to untable
Yes,
it?
yes,
So we have to have a vote to untable the item
right,
before we discuss the item.
correct. Yes,
So
why
the chair,
would we?
the chair must seek a vote to untable the item regarding the policy.
But we should discuss why we wouldn't untable it.
You can discuss the motion to table or untable, yes, you may.
Yeah, before a vote.
Right.
So I guess that's what we do next. Why should
Well,
we
let's see if there's
postpone?
a motion to untable it with a second, and then we'll have discussion.
My feeling is I'd like to have all the board members here to vote on this. That's why I believe why we tabled it the last time, but
No, we tabled it the last time because I failed to see that in the first paragraph, I didn't change the time of the meeting and the room, it was incorrect. And so we corrected that, and you said you wanted time to read through it, you didn't have time to read through it. So this has been on the agenda twice, and there's only a couple of sentences that are changed, so I don't see what the problem is with going ahead and changing it.
Is it all right to ask a question before a motion's made? Or? I did have one question, where you say the board chair will serve for 1 year, vice chair will rotate into the chair unless they decline a seat, that's clear. Then the next person in line will rotate. Is that based on seniority?
Well, we would have to, yeah, basically we would have to set an order. And a person could decline, say there's an order, chairman, vice chairman, and then by seniority.
Then I think we need to add that in there, that it would be the next person in line by seniority.
So, point of order though, if we're actually discussing the item, we need to have a vote to untable it to discuss the item. I thought your question was about tabling.
Okay, so do we have a
So-
motion to untable this item?
Yes, I make a motion to untable it and to discuss and make changes to it and then vote on it.
I'll second that for discussion.
Okay, so now we can discuss it.
So,
Well, don't you-
or take a vote.
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
now
can we
can
discuss
it
the
and then-
changes?
Okay, we
Okay.
take a
No, you
vote,
can
we take a
take-
vote to untable it. So,
Or you can discuss untabling it and then take a vote.
Yeah, so I'd be
Don't
curious,
discuss the document.
untabling
only-
it. So I would be curious to hear what each director, why they would or would not like to untable it. What's the
We don't,
basis of not voting on it tonight, making your changes and not voting on it, and voting on it? What's the
we don't-
problem?
I can understand the request to have all the commissioners here when it's a procedural in the policy manual that everyone is here to vote. I can understand that request.
okay, so first we have to take a vote to untable it. There's been a motion and a second. All in favor
To
to
untable?
untable this item?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
nay.
Nay. So it's a tie.
Motion fails.
So the motion
fails.
fails.
Next one.
Okay.
But it will come back on the
It
January
can
agenda.
come back on the
February.
next month when we have a full board,
Okay, great.
and we'll discuss it again. Okay, now, then we have item 6, which is discussion and possible action regarding the rate study. And I don't believe that this evening we intend to take any action on the rate study. There has been, with the bond refinancing, it seemed not to be kind of counterproductive to forge ahead with the rate study because the individuals doing the rate study wanted to do multiple scenarios. There's plenty of time to have the rate study done by the 1st of July when we need to have it finished with all the procedures that we need to follow through. So we asked the rate study, Mark Hildebrand, to postpone his work for a couple of weeks while we get the real rate that we're gonna be basing, hopefully we're gonna get offers next week on what the banks offer for the refinancing rate, and then they can do one study that with the proper information in it, and we're not gonna spend a lot of money with them theorizing on multiple scenarios.
Makes sense.
That's, so,
I do have a question.
I do too.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, on page 16, and I don't know if that would,
Go ahead.
okay, under the bill impact, I calculated out it would go to the current well is 60.07, and that's with the $53.47 fixed charge, and then 3 times the 6.60, which comes out to $14.97. And yet in his current number for current, on the schedule just adjacent to that, it says $50.83. Can you tell me how he got there?
I can't,
Okay.
but that's a good question, and I understand what you're saying.
I believe that there is a city and a district. Now, the district at present credits 300 cubic feet of water usage to the customer before that the water calculation is added up. Okay, so you take the water calculation minus 300 cubic feet. Okay, and I think the proposal was to remove that 300 cubic feet.
I understand that for the
Yes.
proposed,
Yes.
but for the current is where I have the question, because if you take the fixed charge and then take 3 HCF times the 660,
And they're free.
but on
In-
my bill,
in the base
I'm
rate.
charged $60.07.
Which would be the base rate for
That's right.
that 300.
Right. So I understand the bill. What I just didn't understand how he said the current was $50.83. I didn't get how he got to that number, that's all.
Okay.
It's not a big deal, but if the calculations are gonna flow from that,
I think before, when this is finalized, it's my understanding that Mr. Hildebrand's gonna make the presentation to the full board where those kind of questions can be clarified. Now, public comment?
Sure. Are we going up there still?
Yeah.
Union Chum went to Ukiah. I would just like to clarify a little bit, I think, what Director Whiff said. I think really Hildebrand's work is done, and really he's got the rate model is set, and what we were really hoping to do was to get a more accurate final output based on whatever the actual refi rates are. So he's done. We basically have asked him to just sort of park it until we have the real rates that will come in for the refi, and then he can plug those into his model, crank it out, and then all of those outcomes, bill increases or bill decreases, will be actual instead of his forecasted theoretical on what the rates during refinance might be, and that's it.
that makes sense.
That was our,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's way better to know what it is and just
Mhm.
do the real math instead of sort of take a best guess of what we're likely to get and have a meeting on that.
Well, could Sean or Dave ask him that question though for that particular chart?
You certainly can as well.
Oh,
No,
okay.
But I think
I got
most of those are,
you.
essentially calculated on averages. And I think it's probably, like what Ernie is saying, is to just wait until the real numbers are in there. The contract we have with Hildebrand actually calls for him to present them to those boards simultaneously. And that's when we can ask them all specific questions we ever wanted.
I have a quick question. It seems that they're only gonna go over with staff and not the boards before the draft report is presented.
Yeah.
So when can we get our questions answered? At that joint meeting?
At the joint meeting, and that's exactly what it's for. So he's gonna give you the draft report. So that'll be sort of everything in final form, but not finalized. And then you guys can ask all the questions you want. He'll respond to your comments, and then that's when the final one comes out.
Okay.
And that's February 12th.
It was the 29th, is that what it got moved to, or is it?
I don't know, Sean.
Yeah, there was a lot of-
I think it got shifted,
There were a lot of cats in that herd, and I don't know what the final date is,
Yeah.
but the 12th sounds correct. but I'm not sure that is what the final date is.
So Ken, is that handout that is the latest schedule?
And it's all kind of tentative, and I believe, you know, it may change due to everybody's availability. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, you're very welcome, thank you.
But you're right, Ken, it's February 12th is tentatively set for that.
Thank you.
And then also what Ernie and Sean both said is the first part of that letter. Mr. Hildebrand kind of explains why it's being postponed for 2 weeks in order for the rate study to, or the bond refinance.
That makes perfect sense, yeah.
Good. Okay.
All right, so I think we're just gonna assimilate whatever information's in there and wait for the real numbers to be presented, right? So I think, is everybody good with that? Do we, we're not taking any action on it, so. Then the item 7 would be discussion and possible action, update on the bond refinance.
Great, so we're gonna pass out another schedule. This is the latest that we've just received, what we've covered so far, and what we propose.
There you go.
You have extra copies for the public? No.
Yeah, there's. So this is the latest schedule that we've put together, what has been accomplished and what still needs to be done. We did have a bidders call yesterday. We had approximately 5 financial institutions that participated in that call. There were 2 others who expressed interest in bidding, but were not able to make the call. So we have approximately 7 financial institutions that have expressed interest in,
Just for the district.
for just the district, correct.
Are they all private?
Yes,
They're all banks
thanks.
So they're all
or
private?
financial institutions.
So I think, let me see. So, okay, legal documents, they have been distributed. Also, copies have been given to the city, our legal documents setting forth the bond refinance. The copy of this was given to the city's financial advisor. I think that kind of brings us up to date. Again, as you can see, the schedule and completion would be January. January 27th.
Does that mean a special meeting, a special board meeting on that date?
Yes, probably so. I is considering, rate consultant meeting with board. So there would be a special meeting on that date. Responsible parties, there's a little symbols, and then the second page explains what that is. And I want to say that I have been extremely impressed with our financial consultants. I don't think I've ever worked with any sharper people, and I think we're very, very fortunate to have such a great team. They put a tremendous amount of work in to try to get this done for the district. And
Yeah, they're doing a great job. Wingsy and Jenna, Winksy, who is the financial advisor, Jenna, who is the bond counsel, and all the other individuals that have done over the top.
Question? I just wondered if, since the two of you have been working with this mainly, were you comfortable with the city's proposal request with the percentages for the capacity, the fixed capacity component, and the variable rehab component, as far as what they assign to the district?
I don't recall any questions coming up about that.
Well, that's been something that was established in the operating agreement. It's been discussed numerous times over the last lot of months of what our proportions are to date. Those proportions will change all the time.
Because it's different than I watched a video of, or I got a document of a presentation to the city council from 2018, and those numbers are different. That's why I was concerned.
Because at that point, the capacity and everything was completely out of whack, basically. So that's why the numbers would be different. John straightened that out.
That was actually part of our new operating agreement with the city, that we come to an agreement on the ESSUs and the capacity, and it was in the operating agreement as well, the percentages for each. And that's supposed to be revisited and recalculated each year. And I know that when we look at paying off our portion of the bond with the city, we would look at forecast or know that there could be possible changes in that would increase our liability, and that we would pay that, and we would honor that, knowing that that's in the formula, right?
Okay.
So that's all been considered.
And there is a component in there that we have, there was two components to the plant: rehab and capacity expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the district took 65% of the debt for the capacity expansion, so the debt isn't necessarily equal.
Right,
Yeah,
I
so,
understand that.
okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I have one other question, though. I don't know if you can answer it, and it's just kind of an aside. How do they select the bonds that are going to be redeemed versus those that, let's say the city wasn't doing it at the same time, and how do they select our?
I asked that question the other day, and it was told that they would reduce them all. So if you had, they would redeem everyone's bond for a certain portion.
Okay.
So
That
they're
sounds
they're
fair.
not gonna single anybody out. If you have $100,000 in there, you might have $50,000 in there.
Yeah.
You know, however, whatever the percentage comes out.
Got it, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I remember you asking that question, and thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so,
I'm excited about this.
Comments from the public?
comments from the public? Any further comments, Dave? So basically the banks, we were on a call yesterday with the banks. They should get back to us by the 16th. And then the financial analysts and everybody will go over it and we'll see what it's about.
Yeah,
So,
exciting time.
so there's really no action there.
I'm sorry, one other thing. I just noticed on the rate study, I know that's going back, but the percentages they gave for the next 10 years based on whether there was refinancing or not. I was surprised at how high they were going to raise them, or they were suggesting to raise them, even with the refinancing. Well, 2020 versus 21, 22. But did that surprise you at all?
That actually came up at
Okay.
the last meeting of the meeting.
That's been an issue for me as well.
Yeah.
Because we are very flush financially. We have a lawsuit settlement with income coming in. We're doing very well on our revenues. Our revenues do not exceed our expenditures, right?
Right.
I mean, our revenues do exceed our expenditures,
Expenditures.
not vice versa. And on top of that, we're looking at refinancing and saving between $5 and $7 million. So why would our rates go up? And so this is so superficial as far as the data we're receiving, that when I look at that, I want to know how they came to that conclusion. And so I have the exact same questions you do, and I hope to be able to ask them that once we refinance and know for sure what our rates are and how much we're saving, and put that into the mix. And you know, also I have questions as far as our capital expenditures. How did they come up with those numbers? You know,
The capital expenditures, we don't really have any plans to make any large capital expenditures other than what may be, main failures and repairs. So that was a question I wanted to ask. And then the other thing I wanted Dave to look into is, and this may be because of the fact that there's a lot of trailer parks that are in the district, or entities that use more water than single-family residences. But in their study, they have the 37,212 cubic feet used by the district, and 33,665 used by the city, when the city has 700 customers more than the district.
It's not mobile homes, or I looked at that too, and the apartments.
Well, but a mobile home park is 1 meter.
But I bet you it's the pot grows. I don't know.
They're in the town too, you know, they're
I know
everywhere.
they're in the
I mean,
But I think there's more in the district.
it was just, well, I would, can you look at that information and see if that,
and I think a lot of the information that was used to compile this came from the city. And because we don't have, so I want to know what information is behind all of this. Those are my questions too.
you know, I was just surprised we had 700 less customers with, an extra 4,100 cubic feet.
Yeah, that's.
And Sean, public comment, can you?
Yeah, it's been my experience with this billing records. Basically, it doesn't surprise me that the district has less accounts but use more water, just because it has more industrial and it has bigger houses. So the general house and lot size in the district is bigger than the city. And the rate increase, especially initially, the city had the same question, because it didn't really seem to make sense, or at least at the level that was proposed. And that's essentially to achieve debt ratio coverage in the first 2 years. That's necessary to get a favorable refi rate.
Okay. Any other questions on that?
Yeah, I mean, where are you finding this on here? Where's the rate comparison?
Well, the rate comparison is back on what, page
16.
The metrics I was talking about are on page 5. Top of page 5, slide 9.
So,
All of these pot grows.
Yeah, I don't believe that's it, I think. What all this is calculated, Ken, is on on wet weather months. So it is,
Yeah,
you know,
that's true.
and that's been changed. The district previously did January, I think, maybe January and February. Now we're going to do, the city has always done January, February, March, and the district's gonna do the same, January, February, March. So if there's a leak that somebody fixed, it's gonna catch it.
no, that's.
I thought it was
no.
opposite.
So
Yeah.
the district currently looks at January, February, March water
City.
usage.
Yes,
And does an average. The city uses
uses
1 month,
January, yeah.
just January.
Yeah.
And calculates the years.
But I thought
But
it
they're
was
being
agreed
proposed,
that,
the rate study folks have suggested that they go to
yeah, I thought,
3 months.
maybe that's where I got it.
That-
That
yeah,
everybody
it does
was gonna
say
get
that.
on a 3-month
The same.
program,
Yeah,
the same.
but that
So
hasn't
we're the
happened.
ones doing the 3-month, and it's suggesting that we both use the 3-month average,
Okay, well,
right?
yeah, so, that I guess the crux of the situation is where it's going to try to be trued up to where everybody's using the same methodology.
Good.
Okay, so the next item would be, we got the bond refinance, general manager's report.
I think I have just one item, the Panda Express, on the report on that, the calculations have been figured at 2.5 equivalent sanitary sewer units for that facilities. And that's,
So I had requested that when we issued the ESSU for that building, it was based on a shell building. And so when I saw Panda Express open up, I wanted to see how many ESSUs were purchased for that and the calculations on how they came to that. And so we just got the paper this meeting that said it's 2.5 ESSUs, which to me seems a little low. And I know that did you have any participation in calculating that, or were you notified by the city when that request came through?
I don't know if we were involved as far as our
So,
contract
yet
services
again,
with
I
the
feel like we
district.
weren't involved in that calculation, and it's just been given to us that that's a calculation.
Well, the initial calculation was on the shell building.
Explain that, because that's kind of interesting. So there was just a base rate or fee?
They calculated a small amount of fixture units, like a half a ESSU.
Why would they redo that?
And
Like if it's an
We-
office
And-
or it's.
And they didn't know for sure what it
no.
was?
So
And-
it
No,
was
right,
nothing.
right.
It was nothing. It
probably
was a shell.
Sean's gonna give us a better answer
So,
than any of
the-
us.
The shell building, and the district again didn't have any part of that, was calculated at half an ESSU.
So we didn't know what it was gonna be. Nobody
Yeah.
knew it was
Oh,
gonna
so
be.
it was.
No,
that's what was
they knew
calculated.
it was going to be a
It was,
Panda
it was,
Express.
it was a token connection fee to start the process, as I understood.
That's exactly right. So
Yeah.
they can't, and this is exactly like what happened with one that has Starbucks in it at some period of time. Let me preface all this by saying, I don't do these, and this is in a different department, but I understand the basic process. So in order for them to get a building permit to build anything, they have to go through this process. And they can't sell it to somebody until they have a building to sell. So they'll basically go in and say it's gonna be some sort of office building, or, you don't know if it's gonna be, another Verizon type store, or it's gonna be a restaurant. So they build the commercial unit, and then when it goes for occupancy, you have to come in and adjust it to whatever it's actually gonna be. So there's an initial assessment that's very minimal that allows them to build a building so they can start trying to, so they can actually construct it and then start looking for tenants. And then when they get a tenant, that tenant has to come in and do the units. That calculation was done in May, according to the sheet I gave Dave, so I think that was before Dave was here. But traditionally, it's always been the same. The city does the calculation. The city sends it to the district signs off on it, and then it comes back and it gets entered into our system. So the district always has an opportunity to see it, and we don't move forward until we get approval from the district. So this whole notion that the district never saw it is just not the way it actually happens.
Well, I understand that maybe in May, because we didn't have a district manager, but for Panda Express to come in, I just asked him if he approved that and looked at the calculation for that. And he said he never saw it.
He never saw it because, again, it preceded, I think, Dave's involvement in the district.
The restaurant?
The restaurant, you know, all of these things,
The building.
like for
permit.
Panda
I
Express
know
to
that- I
open
know that-
today, it
No,
probably
I
happened
understand that.
2 years ago.
But no, it didn't, because I know that the initial half an ESSU for the Shell building was prior to Dave.
And so was the 2.54, that is what happened in May. I'm not sure when Dave took over, but I don't think that happened in May. But regardless of who was running the district at that time, the city always does the calculation. The city always sends it to the district. We don't move forward with issuing the permit until we get a sign off from the district, and then they're allowed to proceed. So somebody from the district saw it, and there have been a lot of periods where no one saw it, and really have been transitional eras for, the Sand District here.
I have a
There's been
question.
a lot of turnover.
Is it rated, I know it's a restaurant and you rate it low, medium and high due to grease and everything. Do we have a rate, that rating?
Yeah, that's how that whole thing is calculated. Dave has the whole sheet. I don't know off the top of my head what Panda was, but restaurants are usually either medium or high.
Yeah, do you know if it was
So
rated
just for
medium or high?
clarification, the district has never
Calculations is
signed
a
off on
little
any of
different than I've
this.
seen.
The district has been notified after they happened. And maybe the procedure now is to allow the district to sign off on those.
It's
But
actually always been the same.
It's not. You already said that you don't do that, so
Sure.
I'm just saying.
If you have something that the district signed off, can you send the district
I'll see
a
what I
copy of
can
it?
find, but we usually don't move forward until we get what's called a
Okay.
clearance letter from the Sand
That-
Right, and so if you can give us a copy of the clearance letter, that would be appreciated.
District.
So
Then that
Sean,
would clear a lot of this up.
the 2.5, is that
It's
just the,
2.54, I believe.
yes, is that for just the Panda?
That's just for Panda.
Plus what,
The original assessment stays in place, I believe.
and that was, what was the?
It was,
I don't know.
it was like 2 bathrooms, whatever the
Point
fixture.
5, is that
Teresa
what-
Yeah, I
said
think it was
0.5.
okay, so it'd basically be plus 0.5.
But you have two
Well, no,
more.
because,
3.54?
but does
Or
that
3.4.
building hold more than just one restaurant? Can
No.
somebody else move into that, or is it Panda?
Well, then I'm
It's
assuming
all
it'd be
building?
reevaluated.
I'm not
at the
sure,
Use
yeah.
permit or.
I don't know that specific building well enough.
We're not gonna look at it.
Yeah, okay, great, thanks, Sean, I appreciate your explaining that.
So can you look over how they came to 2.54 and, I mean, what's my house?
It's all in the building, in the file for the building, the street address file. It should all be in there of how they calculated and how they reached it,
And
as well as the,
Because
Approval by the district.
we charge somebody for a empty,
Shell.
Building, $70,000.
right,
Oh, you're
and they
talking about
charge
hookup
a
charge.
restaurant that's open how many hours a day, cooking constantly, 20 grand. So that is not,
Actually,
that's not equity.
32.
Is that the
That's-
connection fee that
The
we're talking
connection
Connection
fee,
fee.
yeah, so there's a definite inequity there that I want,
Yeah, we need to look at it.
we need to look at.
Mhm.
Sean has provided the
You have
fixture
the people, how it
worksheet,
was done.
and maybe I can meet with Jared and he can.
I saw that, but I don't understand, for instance, it says dishwasher domestic.
Well,
Domestic,
what-
is it
what that is
commercial?
What paper
What that
Domestic
is
is
that-
domestic.
No, what that is there's nothing attributed to that item on a domestic.
Could I have a copy of that? We don't have a copy of that.
He
Dave
just,
just
Oh.
handed it out.
Go ahead, yeah.
Oh,
so
okay.
all it says is floor drain.
Yes.
14 floor drains, 6,
Here,
14.
let me show you how to read it. Okay, you have, this is the amount of fixture units that are applied to each one of these items. You have to carry it over here, so they have 7 floor drains, okay? So each one of those floor drains is worth 2 fixture units. Then they have 2,
So the entire restaurant has 2 dishwashers,
it,
2 domestic dishwashers?
it has none. It's,
2.0 would be.
no, this is the fixture unit that you attribute to
To this item.
To that
And this is what
item.
they actually have.
This is what they have. This is the new fixture.
So they have floor drains,
Okay, and they
and
have
they have
Wow.
2 single
a
lavatories.
lavatory, and a wash fountain. Is that a sink to wash your hands?
Laundry.
They have commercial with food waste. One, what is commercial with food waste?
That's 3 fixture units.
They're saying it's designating it as a commercial.
Okay, what you do is you add
It's
up.
a sink.
You
It's
add
a
up
sink.
these.
So they have one sink that's worth 3 units, right?
Yes.
And then,
My guess is it's a dishwasher.
And they
11
have-
service or mop basins.
okay, so
Okay.
that's,
Then you take this one. There's 2 at 4.
the water closet.
Yes. Okay, so if you take these numbers, multiply it by these numbers, and then add them all up, you'll come to that 66 fixture units. Then, what's the division, 22, John?
I believe that is correct.
I believe it, you
Something
divide
close.
by 22, and you'll come up with 2.54. Or, oh, we can take 2.54 and divide it into
Yeah.
66 and get the exact number, right?
Right.
So,
No, they only charge
It says 26 divided by 26.
2.541
is it 26?
Yeah, it's
You know,
right on there.
It's
Yeah.
been a long time since I've,
It says that
It
it's on
says
there,
DFU/26.
divided by
so
26.
divide by 26 and you'll come up with 2.5.
So this way of doing it
Actually.
is what we agreed to in our new agreement with the city?
I
'Cause I
don't
know
know.
this isn't how we did it in the past.
It is how
It is not how it was done in the past. It's not the district's formula. The district's formula was what got, Rose Business Park a $70,000 bill.
Right.
Yeah, it's not
Because
fair.
if you worked out the fixture units for that particular installation, it was
right.
about $20,000.
Right.
So I felt that this methodology was better.
But when did we officially go to this and vote to go to this type of,
I thought
was
it,
that something that just automatically kicked in? I thought this was going to be discussed between the two boards and we would have some input and say so.
I believe you're
I-
right that the operating agreement calls for,
Us to use the
Fixture
same,
units.
the same,
Right, the
but
same-
I
not
don't
fixture,
believe
but I
as
don't
a
think we've ever
board,
agreed to it.
Drain
as a
fixture
board,
units.
we've never had any input on this in switching.
Right. Switching from the way the district used to do it versus the city, because they used to be 2 different ways.
remember about a year and a half ago,
Yeah.
I did 4 buildings that I was involved with. Okay, and I worked out the district's methodology and the city's methodology. And my concern was that with the district's methodology, we were giving away a lot of capacity that was not being used.
I don't have I
So-
don't have an opinion on which way is better.
I thought
My
that we had
concern-
voted on that.
My concern is that this was not brought to the board to approve these numbers in this way of doing it. Did I ever see a comparison how
Sean might be able to
how
answer.
other districts, what is in the rest of the state? What are these numbers in other districts in the rest of the state?
It's
What are
done
they using?
It's done all
I know
over.
it's done all different ways, so I don't I don't remember ever voting on this, and I don't remember ever agreeing to these numbers. I remember saying that we needed to be on the same sheet, we needed to do it the same way, that we'd have input from both
What I can-
entities.
What I can tell you is that before the operating agreement, the city still did all the calculations for, especially for the overlap area, but they would use a district formulation for stuff that was in the district and the city method for that stuff that was in the city. I don't know the operating agreement well enough to speak to whether it was addressed specifically, but I believe all it said was that we would try to reach an agreement on how it was gonna be calculated in the future.
I thought when I presented all that information that we had actually voted on switching to the fixture unit, Sean.
And we may.
You did, and you directed the city to start using the city's methodology.
Do you know what?
That's-
I
that's
remember
what I
that.
thought.
Do you know what month
We've
it
been doing
was?
that for some time.
Do you know what month that was, Sean?
I don't, you know, there's so many.
Does this ever get, like, does this get revisited every couple of years and updated or compared to any other, what's around the state? Because, I mean, I just wanna make sure that we're, on par with what's going on. And I know that, whether a restaurant gets a ton of business or that they get no business at all, it doesn't matter because we're going by fixture, right? And so my concern, I guess, is just making sure that this gets visited every once in a while, make sure we're accurate as compared to other districts and places in the state that are comparable to us. And
So this is not a methodology that the city has made up. This is a sort of a standard methodology. But there are a number of them, and during all of these meetings about the time frame where Ernie was talking about, I think I said, and Ernie said the same thing, none of them are perfect. Some of them overestimate in some scenarios, some
Right.
underestimate in some scenarios. All of them can be gamed. Like the one you used before that had chairs as a thing, is very easy to open your restaurant with 2 chairs, get your permit, no one ever comes back and you add 30. So none of them are perfect.
Right.
The city and other people in this area use this one and have found it to be reliable and sort of, a happy medium in amongst the variety. You can pick a million of them, and that's what Rick did, and that's how you ended up where you were previously. It was very favorable to some scenarios and not favorable to others. This is sort of seen as generally more even-handed and harder to game because you have to get a permit to change the things. In this one, we're adding chairs, you don't.
yeah,
I did a lot of research. I actually called, is it Leonard Osborne, our district engineer, who is in Berkeley. And I said, Leonard, have you ever done like a study on restaurants? There's a restaurant in every corner of Berkeley and one in between, so have you ever done any kind of water usage study of what it is per seat on the average? And I was like, oh, no, it's all over the place. This is the hardest process to evaluate, I think, that we face.
Yeah. And I want us to be business friendly,
Yeah,
but I don't want us to be domestic unfriendly at the same time.
but we're not, but see.
Right? I don't want us to increase all the rates on everybody who has a house and then yet be so business friendly that we're, so that's my only concern.
But see, the house, a house is completely different in the connection fees. We're dealing with connection fees, and these folks will be paying a rate on their water usage. So if they have a huge water usage,
Yeah.
they're gonna be paying a really high rate.
But, and looking at building a house, this is about what you pay to hook a house up.
No,
So, I mean.
12,781 for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house. That's the district's number.
Right. So
Well, that's
6 bedrooms, 5
32,000.
bathrooms,
But-
here, and,
You remember when we studied the Rose Business Park and you said you couldn't adjust that number because that was the methodology. We used
Yeah.
this methodology.
Well,
So
We
it's not,
decided not to do any retroactive because of the fact that where would we stop?
yeah.
How far back do you go?
Yeah, how far back do we go?
That really wouldn't be fair.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot cheaper now if she
Yeah,
applied for a building permit.
it would have been.
Yeah.
So. Okay,
Well,
any
I went
other?
to Panda and I enjoyed it. So thank
Did
you.
you spend the hour in the line?
No, I didn't. I went at 11 a.m. on a weekday and it was empty. So,
So what is it, Chinese food? That's,
yeah,
I've
it's,
never
but
been
it's
to one.
quick, it's
Fast-
quick and it's
fast
fresh.
food.
And it's fresh and healthy, a lot of it. I mean, there's some that isn't, but most of it is.
So, I'm thankful they're
Probably
here.
stuff I like.
No-
is it?
nobody's there.
Okay, so we've gone through the general manager's report
That's it,
Yeah.
thank you.
Actually,
and, staff report. And any directors have anything to report?
Can I just say something here? I looked at a lot of the old meetings, you know, the videos and so forth and all that. I will be coming back to suggest that maybe, it's the kind of thing, we have so many questions, and maybe Sean can answer them, which is great, and maybe he can't. So I think, I'd just like you to think about making a ad hoc of 2 people, that when we have questions or there's something coming up, they can go talk to staff and come back with the answers.
Well, I think we
So
can
we're gonna
pose
do
all those
manager.
questions to the manager
Okay,
and
to the
he'll
manager,
resolve them.
He works with city staff.
okay,
Yeah, any questions, you call Dave and ask him.
okay.
If he doesn't know the answer, he'll find it out.
Well, yeah.
Any means necessary, right, Dave?
Right.
Okay, so any letters, Chelsea, any letters received and sent? So our next regular meeting will be on February 12th, 2020.
And a possible special meeting on
Will-
January.
27th.
Will that be a joint meeting, the February 12th? Because that's what it's scheduled to be in
I
the,
don't believe so. I think that's our regular meeting.
Well,
That says
with that
joint
bond
meeting.
Of
joint board and
There's-
council.
Well, when we've discussed joint meetings, there's always been a discussion about where that meeting would be held.
so it's still a regular meeting, even if it's a joint meeting. It's still a regular meeting for our board, so we would still conduct our regular business,
Right,
even though we may be
Before or
sitting
after.
with them.
But
Still a
wouldn't
regular.
we have to, is there, the city council's not gonna come down here. Are we going to the city council? It would
that's-
need to be,
that's what they've
That's
done in
usually,
the
that's
past.
that's a practice, the meeting has been held at the city, at City Hall, and the city council or the sanitation district will hold their own meeting and then a joint meeting.
so we would meet here
No,
prior.
meet there and do it there.
Okay,
Or we could do the joint meeting, the council leaves and we do
And then-
our meeting.
Right, either way,
Okay.
but either before or after.
yeah, okay.
Isn't
So,
there, isn't
Cause
there
you've done
it-
it, we've
it
done it a
should
couple
be-
times since.
I guess maybe in the announcement, I'd like to see it in bold that this particular meeting is not at Laws Avenue.
It will be.
It will be,
Okay,
it will be,
good.
it will show specifically that it's at a different site.
But I think there has
And-
to be 2 separate agendas for each meeting.
There has to be separate agenda for each meeting.
So I vaguely remember when we were looking at finding a bigger district office, that our office and our meetings had to be conducted within the district.
They do.
And so therefore.
But there are exceptions that we can, and I'll look at it again of why we can hold it outside in the
I'm
city.
sure we could do it just for a presentation, but.
But for a regular meeting, because I know we've had a regular meeting at the city before, I'll have to go back and research it and figure out what.
That was my question.
The process.
That was brought up before.
Because you're right, all meetings are supposed to be in the district.
If you don't have it here at this time, it's not a regular meeting by the Brown Act, it's a
Special
special
meeting.
meeting.
That's,
Yeah, I think there's an exception to that, but I'll look into
Yeah.
it.
Okay, well, we'll get that straightened out.
Yeah,
We're gonna
that'll
straighten
be
that
easy.
out Before we get to
And I think it's
the
so many
12th of
lines.
February.
Yes,
And that's just for the rate study
Joint
presentation,
rate
right?
study.
Maybe the rate study presentations at the city council and we book it on down here and have our regular meeting.
Okay.
That shouldn't be a problem.
we have to have
We'll
a set
figure it
time for
out.
that though.
Yeah, no, we will have a set time for it, and, yeah, I'll make sure we comply with the Brown Act.
Thank you, Doug.
So we can ask questions at that
So you
meeting.
make the big bucks.
So, any other business?
No closed session,
No closed session?
because there's a closed session agenda item on there, there is gonna be no closed session.
No closed session? So item 10 is adjournment.
Yes.
All right.
What time?
7:01.